All right. Good afternoon, evening, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We'll go ahead and get started here. If you got any questions, go ahead and post them. It's either going to be to the right of the video, like if you're on a normal laptop, desktop computer, or it's going to be below the video if you're on a mobile device. If you posted your real quick, if you're on here and you posted your question more than an hour ago and you're waiting to get it answered, just copy and paste your question back in there. I start with the questions that were asked up to an hour in advance. The reason why I do that is I want to make sure that I'm answering questions for people that are here. We send out an email about an hour in advance of these office hours. So a lot of times people will get the email and they'll come here and start asking questions. I can reasonably assume that those people are going to be here to get their questions answered. So if you're new, just understand that's kind of how it works. And if you post your question, so Rob H., if you're on here, go ahead and just repost your question and it will get answered today. So Thomas J says, hello, Q. I was at the range last week and was really trying to work on forward shaft lean. I became much more inconsistent. I felt like I was not hitting the ball as solid, and I even started shanking the ball. Any suggestions on how to get more shaft lean and hit the ball more crisp? So the drills to work through if you're looking to get more forward shaft lean are going to be the straight line release course, because having a proper release of the club is what's going to result in forward shaft lean. So if we look at our straight line release, when we're talking about the straight line release, we're talking about where this club is first splitting the forearms. So after contact, we want to see that club first splitting the forearms about 45 degrees out in front. So you can see here, this is where the club's first splitting the forearms. It's about 45 degrees out in front. If we rewind that to impact, you can see here I am, and I have forward shaft lean. If you're someone who's releasing the club early, right? So most people are releasing the club, somewhere in here, 15, 20 degrees out in front, maybe. If we rewind that to impact, we can see not a lot of forward shaft lean there. So having a proper release results in forward shaft lean. Another course that you may want to work on, which is called the move. The move is about getting the club to shallow out and getting the club face to square earlier in the swing. So the reason why we want to do these things is because both of these things can cause you to release the club early. So if you're coming down steep here, typically when I say steep, I mean this club is more in a vertical position coming down. When this club's in this kind of position, I'm going to need to make a compensation to get this club to come back on plane. And that's usually going to involve standing up. When I stand up, that raises the handle, drops the head. Now this head's working down more on plane, and I can hit the ball straight, which is what I'm always trying to do, right? I'm always trying to hit the ball on target. You're usually not trying to hit a big over-the-top slice, right? You're usually trying to get that club to work toward the target. So that's a compensation to make that happen. The problem is that when you stand up to raise the handle, what do you have to do? You have to flip to get to the golf ball. So that's the first part of the move. The other part of the move is the squaring of the face earlier. So if I'm coming down and I have this face kind of open as I'm coming down, what do I have to do to square this up? I'm going to have to flip and roll the club to square it up, right? So to get this to where I can square the face earlier, I can rotate more into contact and maintain that forward shaft lean. When I flip and roll the club, I have to stand up to make that happen. So if I get this club face squaring earlier, which let's use this so I can kind of show you. If I put my angle finder here. So if I'm coming down and I've got this face open, we can see that face is pointing up to the sky, and I'm going to need to roll that over to get it to square up at contact. Whereas if I'm coming down, I get this face squaring earlier. So you see here, I'm squaring this face earlier. Now you can see it's more pointed down toward the target line there. Now I can rotate into contact and have that forward shaft lean. So here, that's what it looks like from this point of view. If you're coming in with that face open, you've got to roll it over to get it squared up at contact. So that's the move course. So if you're looking to get forward shaft lean, those are the courses that you may want to work on. Now, shanks, if you're getting shanks when you're doing that, shanks are usually caused by either just not having a great awareness of your club face, or moving the hips toward the target, and or swinging too much from the inside. So the first thing that I would do is, even if you are swinging too much from the inside and if your hips are moving toward the target, this will fix the shank every single time. I know it may seem trivial, but try to hit the ball off the toe. Intentionally try to hit the ball off the toe. I know it seems too good to be true and like that would never work, but I'm dead serious. It will work. You just have to change what you're doing. So, if you keep making the same swing and you keep hitting shanks, right? If you don't change anything, that's the definition of insanity, right? You're doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result. So you have to change what you're doing. Right now, you're swinging and you're trying to get forward shaft lean. And the reality of what's going on is you're hitting it off the hosel. You may be trying to hit it off the center of the face, but you're hitting it off the hosel. So you need to adjust your feel to hit it off the toe to get it more in the center of the face. Now, when you do hit the ball, what most likely is going to happen when you try to hit off the toe, it's more than likely going to move it more to the center of the face. If you still strike it in the heel, or if you still shank it, then you need to exaggerate that feeling even more. You may even need to feel like you're coming in and missing the golf ball to the inside. That may be what you need to feel like. So that's a big part of it. If you strike it in the toe, then that's great. That means that you've made change. It just means that you overdid it. Now all you have to do is ease off that feeling to get that ball more in the center of the face. If you're really, really struggling with this, what you can do, and this may seem counterintuitive, what you can do is you can actually line up the ball on the heel. Oftentimes when people get shanks, I see them line the ball up on the toe. That can actually be counterproductive because what can happen is your subconscious knows your brain is smart. It's going to know, hey, I've got to reach out. I can't come down to the golf ball into the same place. I'm going to have to reach out to get this club to get this ball struck in the center of the face. So what will happen is you'll reach out and that will just make you shank it even more. But if you line it up on the hosel, your brain, your subconscious knows, okay, well, if I come down and I bring that club down in the same place, I'm going to hit it off the hosel. So subconsciously, you'll bring the hands in a little bit as you're coming in, and you'll get that strike more in the center of the face. So if you're really struggling moving that strike, line it up in the hosel, and then try to hit it off the toe, and try to feel like you're bringing those hands in as you're coming in. You'll more than likely have that success there. So that's the first thing I would do, and really you'll be surprised how well that works. The other things that I would look at is a lot of times, I don't know what you're working on to get forward shaft lean. Maybe you're working on the move, but when we're working on the move, like I talked about, we're talking about shallowing out the club. Well, if we shallow out the club and we don't have rotation, all we're going to do is swing way from the inside. And what we're also likely going to do is we're going to move our hips toward the target, right? So you're going to end up you shallow it out and you end up just doing that. Well, when I move my hips not toward the target, but toward the golf ball, it's really both, toward the target and the golf ball. When I'm doing that, I'm taking away the space for my hands and club to work through, and that's going to move that hosel of the club closer to the golf ball. So to make that space, you need to feel like you are rotating and pushing this hip back and out of the way, that you are pushing your hip away from the golf ball the entire time. These hips never get closer to the golf ball. That's what you want to think, is that in the backswing, my hips aren't getting closer, and in the downswing, my hips aren't getting closer. Because if they move closer, you're taking away that space. You're asking for a hosel rocket, right? So get to where you're clearing that space so that you can push those hips back and out of the way, and you can rotate into contact. So that'd be one there. Then the other thing that happens is that when you get this club working too much from the inside, when you don't rotate, you just shallow out the club and throw the hands at it. When that club's working from the inside, the hosel's working toward the golf ball, right? So you're going to be a little bit more likely to shank it in that. So number one, if you're working on forward shaft lean, the straight line release and the move courses are the ones you're going to want to go to. To get to those courses, all you got to do is click the instruction tab or hover your mouse over the instruction tab at the top of the screen. Click the Top Speed Golf System. You'll see both of those courses right there. Based on the information I've given you, go and work on those courses accordingly. If you're already shallowing out the club, all that looks great. You just need to work on how that club's being released to the golf ball. The straight line release course is where you're going to want to go. If you're seeing this club shaft working down steeply and or the face is really open as you're coming down, then you're going to want to work on the move course, okay? And you'll be able to look at that on video. Film your swing, see what's going on there from down the line, mostly is what you're going to see in that regard. So work on that, and then if you're getting the shanks, work on those things. Immediately try to strike it off the toe. That's the first thing. And then the other things would be to try and feel like you are moving these hips out of the way. This club is working more down on plane instead of so much from the inside as you're coming down. So hopefully that helps. Let me know if you have any further questions, Thomas. All right, so John L. Says, hello, Q. In Clay's last video, ID 011, weight shift and ground contact, he went through how to correct ground contact before and or after the ball. Can you explain how to correct the vertical corrections of hitting a mat? The vertical corrections, i.e., the simply hand-eye coordination if you hit the mat too thin and or too heavy. Well, that's low point. So you're talking about, well, there's basically two things involved with ground contact, right? We have the low point, which is where this club is coming in and reaching its low point and then working back up, right? And then we have our angle of attack, which is how steeply this club is working down into the golf ball. So if you have a steep angle of attack into the golf ball, you're almost guaranteed to get a deep thud into that mat, right? And a lot of times what will happen is we'll get that deep thud. Maybe our wrists will be sore and we're afraid of it. So what we'll do is we'll pull up as we're coming into contact so that the club really, really shallows out at the golf ball. It just kind of brushes the turf or brushes the mat, and we don't get any of that contact. And we end up getting thin contact on the golf ball. So that's part of it. Part of it is absolutely hand-eye coordination, but you'll develop that as you get better and better and work on golf. If you're doing those drills like Clay's talking about in the video, where you're doing the interleaving practice, you're practicing both extremes, you'll be surprised at how well that hand-eye coordination really works. So what you can do is you can work on hitting before, at, and after the golf ball, getting that contact point with the turf at that time. And then you can also work on getting deep, normal, and shallow divots. So that would be, if you're working on a mat, that would be hitting the turf and getting that big time thud, right? And that would be alternating that between hitting the turf, which is kind of getting a solid brushing of the turf. And then a shallow divot would be where you're just barely brushing the turf. You're just hearing that little over the top of it. So alternating between those will also help improve that hand-eye coordination. Now, if you're finding that you're having trouble controlling this, you're getting that really deep thud into it every single time. There's all kinds of things that can cause that, but they're going to be caused by basically two main things. One is going to be your compression line, right? So your compression line is your line that goes up from your lead ankle, lead hip, and lead shoulder at contact. So as we're coming into contact, we want to have all those in a straight line: lead hip, lead ankle, lead shoulder, and slightly angled away from the target. When I say slightly angled away, for an iron, for basically any shot that you're hitting off of a turf, we're talking anywhere from vertical to 3 degrees, somewhere in that area. And if you're hitting your driver, it can be anywhere from that 3 degrees to, I've seen players up to 10 degrees. They're doing really, really well. Rory McIlroy, he's like 10 degrees angled away. A lot of the really good players are very angled away. The reason for that is because it promotes a more upward angle of attack on the golf ball, which is something that's desirable with the driver, right? Not so desirable when we're hitting iron shots. When we're hitting iron shots, we want that ball first contact. So when you see players that are getting that big time thud into the turf, that compression line can be way too leaning toward the target, right? We want to be either vertical or slightly angled away from the target. If we get to where we're coming into contact and my compression line is like this, that's going to promote a very choppy angle into the golf ball. So get to where you're more in an angled away position. That's going to be working through the compression line course, working on that technique there. But I tell you what, working on hitting the divot behind the ball, right? Getting that piece of paper behind the ball, getting that piece of paper at the golf ball and that piece of paper after the ball, you'll notice when you do that your compression line automatically moves accordingly to where it needs to be. So look at those pieces, and that's going to help you to get that coordination with that compression line. The other thing is the release. If you're releasing the club too early, it can cause you to have both a too steep angle of attack, and it can also cause you to come in too shallow with the golf ball. So it really depends on what you do with your upper body, right? So if I stay down and I'm kind of covering the golf ball, but I release this club too early, I'm going to stick that club right into the ground. I'm going to come down very, very steep. And I'm going to hit a lot of chunks when I do that. If I compensate for that and I'm coming down and I release this club early, but I stand up, right? Now I'm going to come in very, very level with the turf. So that's from not rotating, not using the lower body properly. So you'll want to look at those things on video and work through those things accordingly. But working through those drills, you'll be surprised at how you actually change your technique to match what you're trying to do at contact. So like I said before, if you're trying to get the different, the paper before, the paper at, and the paper after, if you're working on those things, you'll be surprised and see how you change your compression line to match that. Just like with your release, you might find that to get that paper more in front, you might get that wall releasing or that club releasing a little bit more out front. So work on those drills, work on the interleaving practice, and it will get better for sure. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be a super fast 1 hour range session. You're going to be a ball striking master. It's going to take some time and some repetition to do that. But I think you'll be surprised at over time how much progress you can make. All right. So Ed D says, I could not figure out why I was stalling my hips and flipping on video. Good position at max lag with hips square, shoulders closed 45 degrees, good knee bend and posture and lots of lag. Finally realized I had no side bend coming through the ball from there. So my hips went just so far in the downswing and slammed on the brakes, causing me to stand up and flipping all to get my lag right at So let me see what his question is. So we got some backstory here. Sorry, my earlier post got cut off when I tried to paste it in. Anyway, full question. I could not figure out why I was stalling my hips and flipping on video. Good. Okay. But I was standing up and flipping because I had no side bend and my hips could only go through so far. Question is, how do I know when I should come up out of that side bend? Good question. So basically, after impact, once you're into impact, right, you can go ahead and come up out of that side bend. And what Ed's talking about here, when he's talking about side bend, he's talking about this right here. So in my thoracic spine here, it curves. So our spine curves, and we can go into this side bend. So when you rotate, this is how you're able to rotate your lower body but keep your upper body square. So when we see tour players, when they're coming in, their hips are 45 degrees open and their shoulders are, slightly open, like 10 degrees open. That's from what's called side bend here. They are getting some separation of their pelvis and their thorax, but it's not really probably as much as you think. It's kind of an optical illusion that we see on video. It's more of a side bend that's coming in there. So as you're starting down, you're coming down, you're staying in your posture here. You're staying down and through the golf ball. You're rotating your lower body, and your upper body is squaring up to the golf ball, or your shoulders are squaring up to the golf ball. Your chest is opening up, but your shoulders are squaring up. Your lead shoulder is protracting, so it's giving you this illusion that the shoulder or that the chest is square, but really the chest is open. If you look at my back here, my back is pointing in the same direction as my shoulder or as my chest. It's really my shoulders are looking square because my lead shoulder is protracted. What that means is that my shoulder blade's moving away from my spine. That's protracted. So retracted is shoulder blade toward the spine, which would be that movement right there. So as we're coming in, we're going to see we've got some side bend here. We've got that side bend. And, you'll see some players like a Dustin Johnson. He'll chase the ball through contact and he'll stay in that posture. But really after contact, basically anytime after contact and that straight line release, you can come up out of it. That's completely fine. But we want to stay down and through it, through impact. And then in that straight line release is typically where you're going to see players start to come up out of it. Because if you stay in that side bend, right, you're going to be losing speed, and you're also probably going to lose your balance. You're probably going to fall on your face because now your momentum no longer is going in a direction that's going to keep you in balance, and you're going to lose your speed from not going into extension after impact. So go ahead and come up out of it after impact. That's completely fine. All right. So Alan B says, I am trying to increase my swing speed and currently working my way through the 20-minute distance fix. I watched Clay demonstrate how to do everything wrong with weight on the back foot, flipping the club, and only get the speed of 110. I appear to be doing everything right and only get to a club at speed of 84 miles per hour. How can this be? So that's a good question. Not everyone's going to be equipped to get the same amount of speed as everyone else. It's like the same reason why I swing faster than a 12-year-old, right? Not everyone's going to be the same. Everybody has anatomical differences. Everyone has different strengths. Everyone has different flexibility. Everybody's body moves in a different way. So that's really what it comes down to. So, Clay is 6'1". He's a pretty strong guy. He's been working on club head speed a lot. He didn't always used to swing 120 miles per hour. He used to swing, max out at 110 miles per hour. He used to, not swing, very, very fast at all. He's worked on speed training a lot. Myself, I'm the same way. I used to, not swing very fast either. Worked on club head speed training. Club head speed's gone up. But yeah, so I don't know. If you're smaller, it's typically, there's a reason why a lot of the long drive guys are pretty big guys, big strong guys. It's because they have an advantage. They're bigger, they're stronger. They can create more power, whereas a smaller guy can't. Sometimes. So they got to be able to move their body correctly. Now, some of those smaller guys make up with it with some mobility, and not that they're not strong. I'm sure they're very strong. Like Berkshire, he's a strong kid for sure, but he's not going to hang with Joe Miller in the weight room, for the most part. So at least I don't think he is. I'd be really, really impressed if he was. So that's what you got to look at is, not everyone's the same. There's going to be a big difference there. I tell you what, if you work through those pieces, what we found is that the same things that help someone go from 110 to 120 miles per hour are the same things that help somebody go from 84 miles per hour to 94 miles per hour. Your overall speed may not be the same as somebody else, but it doesn't mean that you can't get the same gains. Your delta can't be the same. It absolutely can be. So, and I've also found that people who start out with the lowest club head speeds often are able to get the highest club head speed, or the highest gains, because it's easier. It takes a smaller amount of force to put into the handle to make those gains. So for somebody, to put that in terms, basically, if you think about, I can't remember exactly how the percentages go, but basically, if you have someone who's swinging 110 miles per hour, they would need to put in, 20% more or 100% more force. They could double the amount of force that they're putting into the handle and only gain, I don't know exactly how much it is, but they don't gain as much as someone who is swinging 80 miles per hour if they doubled the amount. If they doubled the amount of force they were putting into the handle, they would probably go from 80 to over 100 miles per hour. Whereas if someone who was swinging 110 miles per hour doubled the amount of force they're putting into the handle, then they would probably go from 110 to 120 or something like that. So they're putting in a lot more. They're putting in just as much work, much force into the handle, but they're not getting as much gains from it because they're reaching kind of that point. So the higher you go, it's actually more difficult to gain more speed. That's why it's insane, these people that are swinging 150 miles per hour, because I basically got to 120 fairly quickly, but it's taken me a long time to get to 126 as my highest. Clay is the same way. He got up to that number too, and I think he's swung 129, 130, something like that is his highest. It's taken him a long time to do that. Robin, the same way. So Robin's done more speed training than any of us. And, he went from, 108, 110 to now I've seen him swing 137 miles per hour. So, it took him a long time. He's done a lot of speed training to do that, but he got up very, very quickly. It's just that all those mile per hour, 1 mile per hour, when you're in that high speed range versus, that's like the same thing as gaining 4 or 5 miles per hour when you're in that lower speed range. So there's definitely hope out there. It's just a matter of going through the drills, get that low-hanging fruit, get that big shoulder turn, get that good weight shift, and use the lower body, using those legs to drive and to drive up through the shoulders. You know, we want to drive with the legs, get our torso moving, get our shoulders moving, really turn that handle up, be able to transfer all that power to the handle, and then ultimately to the golf ball. That's going to help you get speed, getting some more lag in the swing to turn that lag up is going to be really, really helpful as well. So work on those pieces, and you're going to get you may not be able to get the same gains as or the same speed. You may not get to 120 miles per hour, but you can get the same delta. You can get the same gains as somebody else. So Brian Anthony R says, "Good day, Q. What is throwing the club method all about? What is this throwing the club method all about? Is there a benefit to this technique?" So I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about, but the feeling or the thought is, I think exactly what you're talking about is, you know, the release motion is a lot like throwing a ball sidearm, right? So if I have a ball, I'm not going to take this ball and throw it, not cock my wrist back and have my wrist actually cocked forward and throw it like that, right? I'm not going to have a lot of speed on that, except that's how a lot of people release the golf club. A lot of people are releasing the golf club like this. Could you imagine throwing a ball like that? You know, basically a lot of people, the way that they release the club is they release the club as if they're throwing a ball at the golf ball. So that would be, if I was throwing a ball at the golf ball, that's what I would do right there, is I would release it right there. That's how a lot of people release the club, is they come in and they release the club at the golf ball. We need to release to the target. We need to have a feeling that we're releasing. So if I was throwing a ball sidearm, right, I would have my arm kind of coming into my body like this. I would have my elbow or my wrist would be bent back in this extended position right here. And then I would release it like that, right? That's how we want to release the club too. We want to come in, have that elbow coming into our side. We want to have our wrist in this bent back position. We want to release that club out in front toward the target. Whereas what a lot of people are doing is they get this elbow out away from their body as if they're throwing a ball right here, right? And they're going into this, they're pushing with that lead or that trail hand and pushing into the golf ball. So the target is out there. The target isn't the golf ball. The target is the hole, right? So we need to be more target oriented and feel like we're releasing everything toward the target instead of releasing everything at the golf ball. That's why this game's pretty hard, because the way we look at it, that's the target, right? The golf ball is the target. It's a side-on game. I'm thinking I need to hit this golf ball, and if I hit the golf ball, it'll go that way. Whereas we need to actually feel like we're coming in, we're swinging toward the target, and that golf ball is getting in my way, and I'm advancing that toward the target. So that's kind of the feeling that you want to have when you're working on this thing. So I'm not sure if that's exactly the throwing the club method that you're talking about, but whenever I hear that, that's what I'm thinking of. All right, so Paul H says, golf pros always have their right elbow close to the right hip as they make impact with the ball. How should I practice that? It feels awkward when I try this. So yeah, I would work on the move. The move is a good course to work on this, because the move works on shallowing out the club and squaring the face earlier. And there's no way you can really make those things happen if you don't have the elbow in the right position. So if you imagine, if I'm trying to shallow out the club, right? So shallowing out the club is getting this club essentially on plane. This would be steep. You can see when I'm coming down steep, what does my elbow want to do? It wants to stay out. When I get this club shallowed out, that elbow wants to work into my body. So getting that club shallowed out. Also, I can't have this wrist in this bent back position that squares up the face if my elbow is out here. I'm going to want to go like that, right? So working on that move course is going to help you. The tennis racket drill is a really, really good one to work on that. The tennis racket drill, go check it out. Fantastic drill. It's 1.3 in the move course. If you want to go check that out. I'm guessing I have a ton of questions on here that I haven't answered yet. So I'm going to try and get to those, so I won't demonstrate that. But if you want to check out the tennis racket drill to work on getting, that's going to automatically get that elbow in the right place, go to the move course and go to the 1.3 video. To get to the move course, click or hover your mouse over the instruction tab at the top of the screen. That will expand a menu. Click on the Top Speed Golf System, then click on the move from there. Expand that lesson tree, and you'll see 1.3, or you can search tennis racket drill on the website as well, or just tennis racket. All right, so Ed, I answered his. So Mark H says, I finally understand what it means to impact the ball with supination. I can never go back to the other way. I watched a video in which it looks like some pros supinate at impact and not the way Clay teaches. I'm doing it the way he teaches, but it seems easier to do it closer to impact. Pros versus cons. So if you're squaring the face closer to impact, that means that you're flipping. You're most likely flipping. If you're coming into impact with the open face and then really rolling the hands over like that, you're most likely not getting forward shaft lean at contact. What we want to do is getting that club face square earlier in the downswing, and that's going to allow you to rotate into impact with forward shaft lean. So I'd say the con to it is that you're most likely going to be flipping, losing, which would be adding loft to the face, taking away power and compression from the golf ball. Whereas if you square the face earlier and rotate into contact, you'll be able to get that shaft more leaning forward and have more consistent contact. But the wrist, there's all kinds of ways that the wrist can be squaring up the face. When we can talk about it can be ideally what you're going to see with most tour players is you're going to see the lead shoulder or the arm is actually internally rotated, and then you're going to see supination here, and then you're going to see a little bit of bowing in the lead wrist. It really depends on the tour player's release pattern. Like Dustin Johnson's like this at the top of the swing, but at impact, he does not have as much flexion in that wrist. He's actually going from flexion to extension through impact. So his wrist is kind of going like that. With some tour players, it's kind of going more like that. They're actually flexing that wrist as they come into impact. So there's lots of ways to do it. The main thing is you want to do it in a way that allows you to get forward shaft lean, gets this shaft leaning forward, and squares up the face easily at contact. So what you're going to see with a lot of players is you're going to see internal rotation. So the elbow is going to be pointing more toward the target instead of more toward the hip. When we look at flippers, people who flip and roll the club, you're going to see that elbow is going to be more toward the hip, right? So the arm is actually externally rotating as we're coming through contact. Typically, with your best players, you're going to see a little bit more internal rotation. And then you're going to see supination of the wrist, which is basically just my forearms rolling over each other. So your radius and ulna, these are the forearm bones here, and they roll. So if you hold your elbow locked and you roll your wrist like that, this is pronation, that's inward rotation, and supination is outward rotation. So you can see here, if I just do that, that closes the face. If I do supination, right? So that may be what you're talking about. If that's what you're doing, then you're in good shape, right? Right. So you're coming into contact. If you have internal rotation of the elbow, and then supination of the arm here, and then depending on how weak or strong your grip is, you may need to have some flexion, or you may even, if you have a very strong grip, you may even have some extension in your wrist at impact. And that's where I'm talking about knuckles back. That's wrist extension. So it really just depends on how strong your grip is and what you'll have there. But yeah, to each their own on that. All that matters is that you're coming into contact. You've got this shaft leaning forward. You're squaring up the face. That's really the main thing as it pertains to your release pattern. As long as you're doing those things, then you're going to be in good shape. Whether you have less, more bow in the wrist and less supination or whatever it might be, it's really dependent on whatever your specific release pattern is. So Tim F says, "Hi Q, I'm trying to work on staying in my posture, but when I straighten my left leg, it makes me want to lose my posture." So you need to have what's called side bend, and then you also need to be pushing that left hip back and out of the way, because you're probably straightening that lead leg and then just pushing the hip up, right? So if you just come into contact and you straighten the lead leg and do that, that's not rotation. You're just standing up out of your posture. So what you need to do is push the hip back that way. You need to purely feel like you are pushing your hip away from the golf ball. So you're pushing out that way, and the ground is pushing back this way at you, and that's pushing your hip back and out of the way. So you need to have that feeling, and then you also need to have the feeling of a little bit of side bend as you're coming into contact. So if you're coming into contact, you rotate the hips and you don't have side bend, you're just going to go like this, right? You're just going to swing way over the top, right? So we need to rotate and then add side bend. So that side bend is going to allow me to come into contact with the hip body rotated open, and my shoulders coming in fairly square with the golf ball. They can be a little bit open, that's fine, but we can't be like this. That's going to be a chopping down. From this angle, that would look like this, right? We need to have side bend right here, like crunching. That's your stable fluid spine course right there, getting more angled away as we're coming into contact with that side bend. So that's level 3 in the stable fluid spine course, getting that more angled away position as you're coming into contact. So push that hip back and out of the way. When you straighten out that leg, that's to push the hip back, not to just stand up, but to push the hip back. Look and see what's going on video. Push that hip straight back and away. What you can do is you can have something on your backside here. So I have my fridge right here. Have something on your backside here so you can feel and keep constant contact with that piece. If you feel yourself coming off of whatever that is you're using, whether it be a fence, lineman stick in the ground, a chair, whatever it might be, if you feel yourself coming off of that, you know that you're coming up out of your posture. So maintain constant contact if you push that hip back out of the way. Start out slow. You're not going to be able to do it at full speed swing. You got to start out slow. Do pausing, exaggerate as much as possible. Pause. There's a great drill on the website called the wall drill. You can try that out. But you don't have to use a wall. You can use a fridge. You can use a chair. You can use an alignment stick in the ground. You can use your golf clubs. If you have a stand bag, stand the bag up, back yourself up to the clubs. You can use all kinds of things. I prefer to use a chair or an alignment stick because then you can actually make kind of slow swings when you do that. So start out pausing, doing really slow repetitions, pausing at key checkpoints, exaggerate it as much as possible. Then once you start to feel comfortable with that and you're maintaining that posture, then start to do fluid practice swings. Not hitting a ball yet. If you can do it really slow with hitting a golf ball, then fine, go ahead. But I can't do that. I have a hard time. I cannot resist the temptation to hit that ball hard. I've got to hit it hard. So I like to use like a crumpled up piece of paper or something like that. If you take a piece, I thought I had one sitting right here. If you take a piece of paper, which I don't know where it is. But anyway, if you crumpled up a piece of notebook paper, it's actually kind of the same size as a golf ball. So you can use that and just kind of push it out of the way as you're getting more comfortable. Then speed up the reps, speed up the reps, speed up the reps as you get more and more comfortable with it. So that's why I recommend doing it. It's not going to happen in one range session. It's going to take some time. Practice it 15, 20 minutes a day. You'll be surprised over the course of a few weeks how much better it will get. All right. So that's the same question. So Ben S says, for the move, is it the small for short iron as for the mid iron, long irons? You're saying, is it the same? Yes, it's all the same. For whether you're using a driver or you're using an iron, a wedge, whatever it is, what we have to do is we have to understand what the move is. The move is shallowing out the club and squaring the face earlier in the swing. You want to do that with all of your clubs. All of the clubs, you want to do that. So with the driver, we want to get that club shallowed out. We want to get that face squaring earlier so that we can rotate and crush that ball. For the irons, we want to do the same thing, right? We want to get the club shallowed out. We want to get that face square earlier so we can rotate down and through the golf ball. For wedge, same thing. It's all the same. The sensation of when you hit the golf ball is going to be different because, shots that are hit off the turf, you're hitting the ball first, down and through the golf ball. Then you're taking that divot afterwards. When you're hitting your driver, you're teeing it up. It's further up in your stance. You're coming down, you're missing the ground, and then working up into the golf ball. So the sensation when you hit the golf ball is different. But as far as the move, what you're doing, you're shallowing at that club and squaring it earlier, it's going to be the same. And the length of the club, it's going to be flatter because the club is longer. There isn't anything consciously you have to do. It's just automatically going to be that way because the club is longer, right? So that's what I would recommend. So Jeffrey C says, can you give 2, 3 of your favorite drills to do when hitting into a net? So I would really, if you're looking for stuff to do into a net, what I'd recommend, and all these drills are awesome, what I recommend is working on what Clay talks about in our indoor drill series. Not sure if you've seen this, but go check it out. It's really the best thing. So it's working on interleaving practice. He's even got some work along videos in there that are cool. So the work along videos, Clay is there with you practicing, going through exactly, he's telling you exactly what to do time after time after time. So they're meant to set up your laptop or your iPad or whatever right next to the mat and follow along and do exactly what he's doing. That's what I'd recommend if you're working on the indoor stuff, because it's really, really going to help you to hone in on those things. So that's what I'd recommend doing. Work through the indoor drill series. If you want to check that out, all you have to do is go to the vault. The way to get to the vault is click or go to the top of the screen there, hover your mouse over the instruction tab. That will expand a menu. And if you go to vault categories, that will take you to all the categories of vault. So it's not only the indoor drills, we have distance, we have consistency, there's all kinds of short game, there's all kinds of, basically all the extra videos that we make that aren't a part of the system, they go into the vault. So they're all like supplemental videos that are there for that. So go check that out, but click on it's in alphabetical order, so it'll be about halfway down, indoor vault. Click on that. I think we've got 11 or so videos in there right now. I don't think we've released all of them yet. I think there's still more to come. So I think we got some more work along videos to do as well. I think Clay's doing three or so, maybe 5 work along videos. I can't remember exactly how many he's going to do, but he's going to do some work along videos in there. I think one's already in there. So check that out. Really, really cool drills. That's what I'd recommend doing. That's the best thing I can give you to work on stuff hitting into a net. All right. So question here from Kyle H says, when hitting out of a sand trap, I am opening my club face to 30 or 45 degrees. This makes the available club face much narrower. How do you control not to hit off the toe or hosel? You swing more shallow and into out. So you're opening up the face, right? The face is going to be pointed more toward the target, and you swing toward the target. So yes, if you were to open up your face and then swing along your toe line, that's going to be, that's eliminating a lot of your club face. You need to be swinging in the direction of the target. If you swing into out, then that's going to effectively make your club face bigger, right? So open up that face and then swing in the direction of the target. So if I'm opening up my feet, I'm going this way, my target's straight that way, I'm going to feel like I'm kind of swinging in the direction of my target there. It's not going to be 100% in the direction of your target. It's hard to swing 45 degrees into out, but you're going to want to swing more shallow and from the inside. That's also going to help you to get this club to come in, hit the sand, and slide through underneath your golf ball and get that ball up in the air. So that's what you need to do. And also understand that you're not hitting the ball with your club head. You're hitting the sand, and the sand is propelling the golf ball. All right. So understand that when you're working on your sand game as well. So James M says, how do I get forward lean on the golf club? So I assume you're talking about at impact. James, you're going to want to work on the straight line release and or the move course. Those are going to be the main pieces to work on forward shaft lean. The one thing I will say, as far as working on forward shaft lean, you need to make sure the other pieces of the Top Speed Golf system are in place too, because if they're not, then you're really going to have a hard time with this. So we want to make sure that our stable fluid spine is good, right? So our stable fluid spine, we want to be nice and angled the way I address, nice about 6 to 8 degrees. We want to be at the top of the swing. We want to remain nice and in good balance here, nice and stable. We want to remain in that same tilt as we go up to the top. And then as we come into impact, we want to get a little bit more angled away. So if you see here, if I'm too vertical, I'm going to tend to want to release that club right there where my spine is pointed. If I'm more angled away and opened up, that's going to allow me to release that club out in front. So if you're looking at your spine angle and you're saying, oh, I'm not I'm not really in that position at impact, and you need to go work on that first. That's going to set everything up to make it a lot easier for you to get forward shaftling. Because if you go to the straight line release course and you try to work on that and your spine isn't in order, man, you're going to have a tough time. It's going to be tough. So that's why we have, the top speed golf system set up in the way that it is because the order in which you do things is important, right? So we need to have that stable fluid spine. That's really the foundation of the golf swing, is the spine angle. And you know what? The spine angle at address and the spine angle at the top of the swing isn't hugely important as is the swing, the position at impact, but it makes it a lot easier. So if you look at impact and you're in this position, but you're not in those first two positions I talked about, the address and the top of the swing position, that's fine. As long as you're in that impact position, you're good. But the address position makes it easier to get to the top of the swing position. And that top of the swing position makes it easier to get into that impact position. So if you're having trouble getting into that impact position, then work on that address position and work on that top of the swing position with the stable fluid spine. Power turn, I know it's not direct, but the power turn can definitely play a role in how you release the club. If you have a short turn, if you look like this at the top of the swing, you're typically going to rush that downswing and throw the arms at it, and you're not going to use your legs. Most likely, if you're not using your legs in the backswing to turn, you're not going to use them in the downswing either. So you're not going to get that rotation to help you to rotate. You're not going to get that power from the legs to help you to rotate into contact. So having a good power turn is also important. And having more speed is way more important than having forward shaftling at impact. Trust me, having more speed is way more important. So if you're really lacking a 90-degree turn, I'd be looking at that before I'm thinking about forward shaftling. So get that low-hanging fruit. It's one of the easiest things to fix, and it's one of the things that's going to help you the most with your golf game. There's no higher correlation to improving your handicap than improving your speed. No higher correlation, right? So make sure that you got that lag in the swing. If we're casting the club, main thing, we just don't want to be casting the club, right? If you're already doing this from the very start of the swing, you have no chance to release the club out in front. There's no chance for forward shaftling. You're already flipping and releasing it. So you want to work on that top speed lag course. You'll also want to work on your compression line. So our compression line is that line at impact from the ankle, hip, shoulder. We want that to be all in a straight line, and we want that to be slightly angled away from the target or vertical with the target, but somewhere in that area, right? So somewhere right in there. If our hips are bumped out like this, right, I can't rotate from here. I'm going to be all locked up. I can't rotate. I can't release the club out in front. So you may want to work on that. So you want to look at these things and see what's going on with your swing and work your way up to that straight line release in the move course. All right. So Doug C says, in the downswing, how should the right arm and elbow play through the hip to ball impact and extension? Should the right arms be as flat as possible for distance? So basically what you're going to see in your best ball strikers is that right arm, that trail arm is going to be bent at impact. So we're going to be coming into contact, and that trail arm is going to be in a bent position. That lead arm is going to be in a more straight position right here. Typically what you're going to see is we don't have the right camera angle, but typically what you'll see a window right there between my lead arm and my shaft. You'll see a window right there. As I'm rotating and coming in, you'll see a window right there. That's typically what you see. So that means because your right shoulder is going to be lower than your lead shoulder at impact, right? So you have to have, if you had, since your right shoulder is lower, if you had your right arm straight, you're just going to throw that club into the ground too early. So you need to have that lead arm or that trail arm in a bent position so that you're not throwing the club into the turf. So that's going to be working on, all the things that we talked about, the move course, working on that straight line release, working on those courses. That's going to help you to get that elbow into that right position there. So James N says, just wanted to share that after being away from the golf for almost 25 years, picked it up again early last year after joining TSG in July, hit my longest drive of 270 in August. Wow. And I've already hit 280, 285 so far this year. I credit the TSG program. Thanks. Still planning to work on, but golf is fun again. Awesome. Great to hear. James, keep up the hard work, man. All right. So Greg P says drills for a professional chicken winger, a former collegiate basketball player or baseball player. There is no third base line in golf. Thanks. So if you're chicken winging is caused by no rotation of the lower body. It's caused by the upper body out racing the lower body. The bad chicken wing. Now, keep in mind, you may have a good chicken wing. Baseball players are notorious for this. Brooks Koepka, he played some baseball growing. I think he played college baseball, or he had a choice to play. I can't remember exactly how it was, but a lot of baseball players, what you're going to see is as they come into contact, you're going to see a lot of baseball players. They have their arm kind of moving out away from their chest. And you're going to see they'll have kind of what looks like a chicken wing as they're coming in. They'll kind of look like this as they're coming in, all those power home run hitters. And you'll see some golfers are like that. If you look at Brooks Koepka, he's kind of like that coming into impact as well. He kind of looks like this. So this right here, that's a good chicken wing. That's a powerful chicken wing. That's holding that face square through contact with forward shaft lane. That's that kind of chicken wing. That's with the rotation. That's the chicken wing that's good. That's the chicken wing that you see a lot of good players have. So Brooks Koepka is not the only one. Look at Angel Cabrera. Look at Lee Westwood. Look at Jordan Spieth. There's a lot of players out there. I think J.B. Holmes. And a lot of these players are very powerful as well. Jordan Spieth not particularly really powerful, but he's not a real big guy, and he gets quite a bit of power for not being a real big guy. So lot of power being generated from that. Now the bad chicken wing is where we see no rotation of our lower body, and it's also not a lot of rotation of our thorax as well. Everything in our body is coming in pretty square, and we get the arms racing out in front. So that looks something like that. So that's from lack of rotation in the downswing. So make sure you're getting that weight shift, you're getting that, feeling that pressure pushing into the ground. Just like the baseball, when we're hitting a baseball, we're not going like this, right? We're opening up like that when we're coming in. So we'll try to have that same kind of feeling. The only real difference between a baseball swing and a golf swing is that instead of hitting a ball here, instead of being more upright and hitting the ball here, you're just bent over more and hitting the ball down here. And you also need to square up the face. I know in baseball you don't need to square up the face. You know, it's a round barrel of the bat. You can just, it doesn't really matter. With golf, you've got to come in and square the face. So the only difference is you're more bent over and you're coming in and you're squaring that face as you're rotating. So I've had a lot of baseball players or guys that have played semi-pro ball or whatever as students, and I love these guys because they know how to, most of them know how to rotate. It's just that they don't know how to square the face and rotate. And once you teach them how to square that face and rotate, then they're able to really, really compress the ball. There's a reason why you see a lot of baseball players. They're really, really good golfers, right? There's a reason for that. It's because they know how to rotate. Also, they're good athletes as well. But it's no coincidence for sure. So I'd work on the move, Greg. That's going to help you to get that rotate, get that face squaring earlier so that you can use kind of more like a baseball swing, but you're adding that squaring of the face. So now you can just rotate through contact more easily. Everything you're doing with your body movements is an effort to get the club face on the golf ball, to get the center of the face on the golf ball, to square it up, to swing it on plane. All the things you're doing is an effort to do that. You're just doing it in the wrong way. So you're moving your body in the wrong way. So you have to make compensations, right? So the compensation is to, if you're not rotating your body, is to kind of get that chicken wing through contact. So all we need to do is get this face squaring earlier and then rotate into contact. And that's going to be the move course. So Greg, go to the move course, work through the move course, get that club face, work on that tennis racket drill. Pretend like it's a baseball bat. Get that baseball bat. Feel like you're squaring up a baseball bat. That's what I would try to feel like. You know, if you've ever played, you kind of do that, I guess, with a wooden bat, right? Because there's the seam on the wooden bat. You have to have the label pointing in the right direction. I think it doesn't really matter with an aluminum bat, a metal bat, but I know with a wooden bat, I didn't dabble too much with the wooden bat. We played in a couple of wooden bat tournaments when I was in high school, but I wasn't much of a hitter. but I know we had to have the Louisville Slugger label pointed like straight up at address. So you kind of do, I guess, with an actual baseball, you do have to square that up a little bit. You can't just roll it over whatever, otherwise you're not going to hit it with the most dense part of the bat. So it's kind of pretend it's like the same thing. All it is you're just bent over more and you're swinging at something on the ground. It's the only difference. All right, so Marvin W says, started 3 weeks ago. Swing speed is up 10 miles per hour to 107 miles per hour, but I can't find the fairway to save my bacon, assuming I even get the ball up in the air. When I do catch a solid, it's purely sight to behold, but that's rare. Maybe 1 out of 5 drives per 9. So there's a difference between your 100% effort speed and your playing speed. You got to find that happy medium. All right, so you're not, when you go out on the course, you're not swinging with 100% effort like you are doing when you're speed training. But if you continue with the speed training, your 100% effort swing, your playing speed swing will go up as your 100% effort swing goes. So it sounds like you're just swinging a little bit out of control. There's lots of stuff in the 20-minute distance fix course. Listen to those podcasts and stuff. The ball striker's mind, or the big hitter's mindset. You gotta listen to that stuff. That stuff's just as important as the actual drills and the training itself. Don't skip over that. It's not a lot of time in there. Just listen to that stuff. A lot of great stuff in there about how to navigate exactly what you're talking about. So go to the course, listen to that big hitter's mindset stuff. I'll tell you, I've done the training. Like I said, my playing speed before was 108, 110. All right. I did the training. I got up to where I was 126 miles per hour. Was that my training or my playing speed? No, that 126 mile per hour swing, that was everything I got. I was swinging out of my shoes, and it didn't go straight. It was a big old hook, but the club head speed was what I was worried about when I'm speed training. Speed training is not the same as ball striking training. When you're out on the course, you need an outcome. You need a result, right? So when you're speed training, the only outcome you really care about is the speed. Right. And when you're out on the course, the outcome you care about is distance and accuracy. Right. So you need to find that happy medium where you're able to achieve both things. So just tone it down a little bit. You probably just need to tone it down a little bit. Your playing speed, your 100% effort swing might be 107 miles per hour, but your playing speed swing might be like 102, 103 miles per hour. My playing speed swing right now is about 119, 120. My max effort, everything I got swing speed is 126 miles per hour. So that you got to find that happy medium that works the best for you. Listen to that big hitter's mindset stuff. That's really, really important. Don't skip over that. So John N says, sometimes I hit crazy left. There's a lot of questions on here, and we got about 3 minutes. So I'm going to kind of rapid fire these. So I apologize if I don't give you like a crazy detail kind of answer. So but anyway, John N says, sometimes I hit crazy left. I will smack my driver, and then out of nowhere, I will hit some crazy left, like a hook to the left. What am I doing to achieve this? It's destroying my confidence over the ball. It's hard to say without seeing your swing, but it may be that you're hitting it off the toe. When you hit it off the toe, what can happen is something that's called gear effect. So the ball will be on the face. When it's compressed on the face, almost like a pancake, it will roll on the face if it's not in the center. So the easiest way to think about it is that the ball is going to roll toward the center of the face. So if you're right-handed and that ball compresses on the face and it's on the toe, it's going to roll toward the center. It's going to have that hook spin on there. So that could be what's going on. Get some foot powder spray. I got some right here. Spray it on the face. You can, it's not working. But anyway, this isn't the good kind. If you get the good kind, it's the Odor X, Odor Eaters. It's in a yellow can. Get that, spray it on the face. You'll be able to see where you're striking it on the club face. If you have a tendency to strike it on the toe, then do some interleaving practice where you intentionally hit some shots on the heel, the center, and the toe. Alternate hitting those shots intentionally off those parts of the face. That will give you a much better awareness of the face, and you'll hit the ball more in the center time and time again. But that's what I'm guessing is going on. I don't know for sure. There's lots of things that can cause that, but that's typically most likely what's going on there. So Marvin W says, I'd be happy to sacrifice a few yards in speed, a few more fairways. What's the recommendation? Like I said, I just tone it down. tone it down a little bit so that you are, like I said, your playing speed. If you're all out 100% effort speed's 107, your a good playing speed is probably going to be anywhere from 100 to 103. So if you gain 10 miles per hour, that's still 3, 4, 5 miles per hour than where you were before. We're talking about probably 10 yards extra. So that's what I'd be looking at. So Ed D says, thanks for this side bend answer. Is the GPS app, is there a GPS app you recommend? I've been using SkyDroid, which is very basic. I don't use any GPS apps. I've heard, I think it's called Shot by Shot or something like that. I've heard that one's pretty good. I think they all are pretty good. I think it's just a matter. I think they all use the same system, so they're all running on the same GPS system. So I don't think it's going to be. I don't think you're really going to see. It's more about functionality, I would say, and the way the app looks and things like that. But yeah, I typically don't use GPS because it can be a little bit off. I like to have exact yardages, so I usually use a rangefinder. The one I use is a Nikon. I can't remember what it's called. It's a Nikon something. I've had a Bushnell, and it's also very good. They're both very, very good rangefinders. So Roland R says, taking you back to supination at impact. If my elbow is facing the target at impact, chicken wing, how do I avoid that? So again, the chicken wing is, there's a good chicken wing and there's a bad chicken wing. So the chicken wing, if you have the chicken wing where you're getting rotation and you're getting forward shaftly and your impact is great, then that's the chicken wing you want. If you have the chicken wing where your arms are out racing the rest of your body and it looks like that, right? And a lot of times that chicken wing is not really pointed toward the target. It's more pointed to the left of the target if you're right-handed. Then that is one you need to work on your rotation. So work on the move, getting rotated. There's all kinds of things to work on there. So you need to work on getting the lower body more involved. It could be a weight shift. You could be hanging back and just throwing your arms. You could be, there's all kinds of things that be going on there. So it's hard for me to know without seeing your swing, but you got to get the lower body rotating to get rid of that kind of chicken wing. Carl M says, hints to make consistent contact on short chips. Weight forward, about 70, 30, 80, 20. Keep your weight forward. Control the low point. Open the face just a little bit. Use the bounce of the club. And that's really what it comes down to it. Get your feet moving. So, or not your feet, get your knees moving. Allow your knees to move around. Keep the club and the body working through together. That's really gonna help you the most. If you try to use all arms, then that's a recipe for disaster. You're gonna have trouble being consistent. Open up the face a little bit, use the bounce, come in nice and shallow. See how my knees are moving? My knees aren't staying locked and still. I'm just gonna use my arms if I do that, and I'm gonna chop down into the golf ball. So allow the knees to move around. Take a look at the work through the chipping mastery and the wedge section as well. Very good stuff for setting up. So last question here. James Q says, do you feel grip pressure is different on your lead grip compared to trail grip at impact? Yes, but that's going to happen naturally. You're going to be keeping constant pressure into the club, the same with both hands. But because of the forces, naturally, you're going to need to squeeze more with your hand, your top hand, right? Because the further you are away from the club head, the more force there is happening, right? So I don't need to apply as much force in my bottom hand because there's not as much force there to be had. In the trail, you're going to feel it more in these first fingers. You don't need to intentionally do that. It's going to happen automatically. Here's how I know. Grab a buddy, hold the club out here in front of you like this, and have your buddy start to pull on that club. But just hold it with constant pressure in there. So it's the same pressure in both hands. Hold it just like that and have your buddy pull on that. And automatically, you're going to put more pressure into these 4 fingers. Instinctually, or these 3 fingers right here, your pinky, ring, and middle finger, you're going to put more pressure in right there automatically. You don't even have to think about it. It's just going to happen, right? So if you didn't, then he would just pull the club right out of your hand, right? So automatically, that's what's going to happen. It's not something you intentionally have to do. It's going to happen instinctually, automatically, because of the force that's necessary to keep this club in your hand. The alternative is to just completely throw the club through impact. So that's what you're going to be feeling for sure. All right, so thanks everybody for joining me. We'll be back here tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern time. Everybody have a good rest of your day, and I will talk to you next time.